Hi, my name is Adam Gunn. I'm a painter from Nova Scotia, Canada. The animation thing, I mean, I always loved cartoons as a kid, but I loved art and in general. But I did like animation quite a lot. Just watching it was always curious about how it was being made. And that was back in the 1990s when I went to school for a short program and learned how to do that. Um, Just before that, I was in university doing physics for 2 years, and I wanted to do art, but like I for some reason I couldn't convince myself that it was possible to do it for a living. I needed to have some kind of practical thing. I don't know why I thought physics was practical. That's not any more practical. It can lead to things, but so can art. And so then I wanted to go to art school. I was going to switch over to that, but I'd already spent 2 years in university, right? So I had like 2 years worth of debt for that from student loans. So I thought like, well, I can't just go straight to art school. I got to have something that's a little practical. So like my idea was like animation was very big at the time in the 90s, especially here in Canada. And it seemed like there was going to be a lot of work in it. And so I thought I'll do that. Then I'll learn how to do that, and then I'll work in animation. And while I'm working in animation, I'll take courses towards a degree in fine arts, and work my way through it that way. And that way, I wouldn't have so much debt. But then when I got into animation, I got caught up in it, and once I got some. I did like a short when I was in school, like went to a film festival. That was pretty fun, going to a film festival, and they like invited me to come to the film festival, put me up in a hotel and show the film and meet all the other filmmakers. That was a lot of fun. And then so I kind of got a bit hooked on the thing, and then I got jobs in it, and it was the first sort of jobs I'd had that weren't sort of summer jobs or jobs working as like a clerk at a grocery store or something like that. So that was I was enjoying the experience of working on it, and I was a bit of a workaholic too at the animation stuff, working very long hours, but I enjoyed it, and so I kept doing it. And then I did end up taking some courses at like Nova Scotia College of Art and Design. It's a fine arts school in Nova Scotia, like I'd planned. But not as often as I wanted to, because I was animating often. But like when I was between shows that I would be working on, I would take a class in the evenings, or maybe do. I think I did a semester's worth of full-time classes for one winter. I was eating away at the degree over time, and then eventually, like, I just decided this is taking too long. I got halfway through a degree, but I needed to finish the rest of it, and I just went in full time. And then while I was at school, I took a painting class. I thought because I had a lot of skills in animation and was into it, I thought I'm going to be a fine arts animator, like make personal animated films. In Canada, you can get them funded by places like the National Film Board. I thought that would be like the direction I would go in, but I took a painting class, and I really enjoyed it, and I got hooked on that. That hooked me much stronger than the animation had, and then I just I've stayed with that since. I'll do other things, but like the painting was really something I felt like dedicating a lot of time towards and a lot of energy towards. Yeah, the animation stuff was usually the scoopy stuff for fun, the kind of stuff I wanted to see. When I think the short film I'd done as a student when I was young was just about a superhero named Captain Procrastinate. And he's just a sort of it's just foolish, like this guy with a cape and polka dot boxer underwears, and he was a superhero who flew, but his like power, but I'm not sure what his powers were beyond flying, but like he was a procrastinator. That was his claim to fame, his name. and he would put off doing all the stuff a superhero was supposed to do till later and not do it. And that's the one I had in the film festival. But after that, when I started working for animation places, I mainly did characters that were for TV shows or stuff that the studios I was working for would have for the job, and they were generally like children's shows, or the occasional music video or something like that, or maybe a show aimed at teenagers. But generally, it was like cartoons aimed at children. It's fun that I teach, and sometimes when I teach, I can ask the people I'm teaching, if they're young enough, if they've watched some of the shows I worked on when I was animating. Sometimes they know the show. There's one that I was teaching at a high school last year, and the students all knew this one show, Johnny Test, that I'd worked on. That was kind of neat. But yeah, I can't take too much responsibility for what the characters are in those shows. It's just my job to kind of bring them to life in these scenes, make them move and act and say things.
You won a competition with the myth of silliness.
Yes. That was when I went back to NASCAD full time. That was in 2008, 2009 through 2010. My last semester there, I made a painting called The Myth of Silliness. And it's basically like an elaborate still life painting. It's still life painting. I had the idea to do that. I've been like doing a lot of still lifes, like, as you do in painting classes. Especially at NASCAD, they do a lot of those in the early classes. And then, but I enjoyed the something about the control of them. I was getting into like the lighting of them, but I didn't want to just do typical still life subject matter. So I'd gotten the idea of like building things to paint. So I would go around to yard sales and flea markets and dollar stores and buy these things that I just thought would be sort of exciting to put together and to paint. Sometimes it's the color of the thing or a certain kind of personality about the thing. And I would glue things together, paint things, and arrange them all in this very elaborate still life. It took me about, I think, a month before I even finished the still life. And then I spent another 2 months, pretty much the rest of the semester, painting that and trying to just make it a real knockout painting. And and then that one was at the end of the term. I was feeling really good because I felt like I made a really good painting. And then so my profs must have thought the same thing too, because they nominated me for this. There's this national award for students, art students that they have in Canada. It's called the BMO Art First, and they pick like one person from each province, basically, and then one becomes national winner, and then all the rest are they're winners from each province. That was the Nova Scotia winner, and that was the first sort of experience of like having like recognition for work I'd done, and then it was pretty fun. They had us all flown into Toronto, had our paintings up in the MOCA, it's the Museum of Contemporary Canadian Art, and which was really exciting to go straight from school to having a painting in there temporarily and for this art contest, but very fun. And then they each of us had like a prize of I think like 2,500. The national winner had like something more like 5,000. That was pretty good, coming into art school. Definitely needed the money. Was helpful to pay the bills while I was looking for work. And that was a really nice experience. They treated us really well, took us out to dinners, and even drove us around in a limousine once, which was a bit showy but really fun. And it was nice meeting all the other artists from all over the country. that part was really cool. And you'd meet all these other people. I didn't know who they were. They were curators who would come, and other art people who were at the opening for the event and everything. But it was neat. And yeah, that really kind of it's an extra fuel to to keep on painting after school. I thought I was going to, but then the fact that okay, there are you can get recognition even if you're a young artist, and you can you can find ways to make make a living or a partial living off of it. I sold the painting from that to somebody who saw it at the opening too, so it was a great start. And then after that, I picked up a job teaching in Halifax at a local digital art school, teaching animation and drawing and that kind of thing to young students like I had when I was learning animation.
I wanted to ask about your choice of medium, oil. Oil is such a hard medium to work with. What made you decide that oil is what you want to work with?
Yeah, oil. It's like when you learn painting, generally you start with acrylic first before you try oil, and that's the intro painting class I'd had at NASCAB. We'd started with acrylic. I think we worked with acrylic for like a month or a little bit more until we switched over to oil. And I found acrylic very frustrating. Some people love acrylic. It's got the fact that it dries fast is useful. But I kind of like that oil doesn't dry very fast. But the main thing I liked about oil when we tried that out was that when it dries, it stays closer to the color it is when it's wet. Acrylic, when it dries, the color changes kind of drastically. Like the generally the lightness or darkness of it. And oil doesn't change quite as much, and I find that much easier to work with, because when I'm working on a painting, like I'm making my decisions based on how it looks as I'm working on it. It's much harder if you gotta like make decisions based on how it's going to look later. You're trying to anticipate what you think it will look like, and it's I find I can be more improvisational and just working with like spontaneous ideas or spontaneous ways I might try using the paint if the paint's going to look later the way it does now while I'm working on it. And I think that's maybe the main reason, but also the color. The color in oil, I think, is I think it's superior. But I mean, there is some great color in acrylic too. So I know some people do some fantastic stuff with they have fantastic color in their acrylic paintings, but oil is the one for me. I like that it stays wet too, so you can kind of it's effects you can get by bringing dragging oil through other oil. Sometimes that's frustrating when you don't want that to happen, but once you kind of get the hang of it, you know how to handle that and you can get some neat effects through it. The color kind of bleeds into another color, or if you want to blend, you can blend. Although that's something I think painters should be careful of, because it's usually better not to blend so much. You kind of take the life out of a painting if you destroy all your brushwork by blending it out.
I read somewhere in an interview that you gave a few years ago, you said, I like neutral colors. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Neutral colors, yep. Neutral colors, I like them. I feel like when you want to have like bright colors, they look great next to neutral colors. So it gives like they make the colorful colors kind of pop. If you ever notice when you walk around on sort of a gray day, how like colors of like flowers and things will really pop out. You'd think that like a bright sunny day is like the time when like the colors are the brightest, and yeah, they are, but then they're competing with so many other colors that are also bright and everything else that is bright. And when you have neutral colors next to these saturated colors, it just makes them feel more powerful to me. So that's my reason for liking neutral colors. Also, I like the subtle stuff happening in neutral colors. I remember when I was first learning to paint, staying like in the studio very late at night, painting, and then getting really into like still life painting. So it's all like a painting from life, and you're looking I was looking very intensely at things in certain neutral colors, and trying to like to decide like how much is this gray? Is it more purple or is it more yellow? And it's like so in the middle there, but if you stare long enough, you start to see like which side of that. And it's really interesting when you get to the ones where it's really hard to decide which direction the color is sort of leaning towards. And I remember like walking home at night, like staring at the sidewalks I'm walking, and like having the same experience, like looking at the ground, trying to judge the color. I find sometimes when I'm painting a lot, I'll start to feel like I'm making decisions like a painter, or looking like a painter when I'm just looking at anything. And I think it's good when an artist or a painter can get like that, where they kind of feel like they're always sort of looking hard at things the way a painter looks. It's almost like you're practicing painting anytime you look at something.
It gets under your skin, who knows what kind of
Then you started to become more focused on climate change.
Yes, yeah. There was a step between that, before I got to the climate change stuff. So I was doing these like elaborate still lifes, like the ones I was doing for that one that won the BMO Nova Scotia award, and then I went to grad school, and in grad school, there's like there's pressure to like to grow and change and do different things, and they want you to kind of like figure out what it is about what you're doing that you're really what's sort of like behind it, what's driving it, and go deeper into it. And I started getting into this thought about like the still lifes I was building. I really liked the building those. There was a lot of improvisation in building those, and then the painting afterwards would be there was less improvisation in that, a little bit in how like the brush strokes would be, or how the paint would be handled, but like all the real improvisation was mostly happening in building the still life, and I wanted that to start happening in the painting. So I thought, okay, I'm going to make paintings that are completely improvised. I won't know what I'm going to make before I'm making them. And I signed up. I was living in Montreal. This is where I was doing grad school at Concordia University, and I signed up for these classes that not affiliated with the university, just local classes in improvisation. It's like generally like comedy improvisation, as a way to kind of it's basically my research for doing these paintings. Can I get like comfortable with working without a plan? And the classes were really interesting, really fun. And it was neat, the group of people you would meet in these classes. One of the classes I was taking, I can remember, like, yeah, the diversity of people in there. We had this one person in class, an older lady. She was a judge, a local judge, and there was another man from Russia. I think he said he was from Siberia. Very strange person. He was very goofy, and this like long nose and these round glasses, and his Russian accent and very strange sense of humor. There was another man from Iran, and then we had a young man from Brazil, and then some local folks from Montreal, French people who wanted to, and some people had different reasons for taking it. Sometimes people would take it because they wanted to learn English better, and it's one way to kind of get more comfortable with English in an improv class, because I think it'd be really difficult. I wouldn't want to do improv in another language, so these people were very brave. But doing the class was really interesting, terrifying too. I'm not an actor. I don't want to be an actor. And the idea of getting up on stage in front of people was terrifying. But did it, and then and it was extremely terrifying too. Getting the idea of like you just walk up onto the stage and you have no idea what you're going to do or you're going to say. You're going to come up with it right there in the spot. But you do it enough in those classes that eventually you just get comfortable with it. And I think I took that kind of comfort of having no plan to painting. The idea that maybe sometimes the best plan is no plan, and you're just going to go with your first thoughts. I think improv, a lot of it, I got some books about it that were interesting. The author was talking about the idea of kind of like getting back to like down to like to very into the present moment, like and the fact that people have thoughts that we sort of censor. We censor out our thoughts. And then, but there's thoughts that we censor that we don't even realize we censored. And if you kind of react immediately to something, the kind of closer you can get to immediate reaction, the less you're censoring yourself. And it becomes more about kind of trusting your instincts to just react with the very first thought that you have. And he talks about like how like one class where they're doing like a little exercise, it's like word association. And the idea in this sort of game is to respond with a word, just that after somebody else gives you a word, but you have to respond immediately. You can't hesitate at all. So you just respond back as with the first thought. And he was going around. He came to one person. This one guy had the slightest, tiniest hesitation in like to a word, and somebody had said a color, and he went to go say a color back, and he hesitated and then said some color like blue or something like that, or green. And so this author who was teaching this class stopped them and said, like, wait, nope, back up just a sec. What color did you really think of? Did you really picture? Because you hesitated. And the guy had to think about it for a second. He was like, pink. It was pink. I was like, well, why did you hesitate with it? And I think they discussed like maybe it had been like some sort of a homophobia or something was keeping him from a homophobia he didn't know he had. With associations with pink being feminine, that homophobia blocked him from. He censored it and didn't realize he had that censoring happening. So interesting stuff. This improv stuff, I liked it a lot. And I started making these paintings based on the idea of improvising. So I was making these sort of rounded shapes at that time. To paint on, and then I would like start off with just putting like a ground of a neutral color down all over it with big brushes, and then go into it with brush marks with no plan, and improvised brush marks, and then look at those brush marks afterwards, and then like add more or like see if it looked like something to me, and then try to go with whatever the first thing I saw in those paintings. And those paintings started to come out. They started to be these sort of chaotic swirls and chaotic and pictures of sort of chaotic matter, vegetable matter, rocks and furry things, and just all in sort of a floating chaos. And that was interesting. And I started to think like, why am I seeing these things? And it could be because of just the still life paintings I painted before, so that stuff was kind of like in my repertoire to paint, maybe, or feelings of, it could be to do with feelings of sort of unsteadiness. You know, you're in grad school; it's going to end soon. What are you going to do afterwards? So, a bit of maybe a feeling of insecurity or something is why I'm painting these sort of tumultuous-looking, chaotic scenes. Or fears about the future in general. Climate change might have been one of those fears. It's definitely something kind of in the back of the mind. You know? And worked on those paintings for a few years, had a show with that. And then the work I did in that, I won an award for that, the Nancy Petrie Award. That's a national award. It's a private award. Given out by Nancy Petrie Foundation. Then they assemble a jury of artists or curators, and this jury picks one person for this award. There's kind of two awards. There's the Joseph Plaskett and the Nancy Petrie. And Joseph Plaskett is like the first award, and that's $25,000 to go and live in Europe and paint there. For about a year. And then the second place one, which is the one I got, Nancy Petrie one, was a $10,000 to also go to Europe and be there and paint and travel around and see art. And very funny, the first place winner was my roommate, Corinne Frechette, and myself being the second place winner. So it was, we were both told to keep it secret when we won these awards, but when they were like arranging things for us to go and pick up the award and what they were going to mail to us, they said, "It's funny. Do you know the other winner? Because you guys have the same mailing address." And that's when we both came out of our rooms. We're like, "Hey, you're the other winner!" And we both ended up going to Berlin to live. Different times there, but we had some overlap when we were there at the same time. And I'd like wrote my proposal that I was going to, based on the ideas of improv that I'd been doing, that I was going to go to Berlin and I was going to basically without a plan of what I was going to make, I was going to be, in the spirit of improvisation, become inspired by something there. Something would lead to something that would lead to work I was going to make. And that happened. I was over there, and I was, I'd gone to the National Gallery in Berlin, somewhere in the first week I was there, and just to look at paintings there. And one of the paintings I was looking at there was this one called, it's a famous one, people know it, they use it in a lot of metal covers, and I think they've made movies and even games out of it. It's called Isle of the Dead by Arnold Böcklin. It was painted in like 1880 something. He actually did like 5 versions of it, and it's this sort of cemetery island out on like this sort of eerily calm water, this sort of stormy gray sky, and there's a little boat coming out to the island, and it's got a white figure standing in it, and it's a spooky painting, and I was just found something with that painting sort of interesting, and then as many people have found it interesting, and then looking at the history about it, finding out more about it made it even more interesting. So that he did 5 versions of that painting, and the one they have there at the Alt National Gallery is the 3rd version. It's about like this wide, this tall. It's a good sized one. Some of the other ones are smaller, but that particular one has a sort of dark history to it. It was very popular in Germany in the 30s as a print. Apparently a lot of households had it. And that particular version was bought by Hitler, and he'd had it in the, I think the Chancellery in Berlin. And at some point he moved it out to his like summer home or something. Yeah, it's got this weird like Nazi connection, or it's Germany in the 30s and 40s connection to it, which adds this extra layer of darkness. It's already a spooky looking painting, but this sort of like this eerie calmness, but also there's a theme of death and resting. And then that painting, for some reason, like it made me think about guilt. Like, so I was just thinking about like, I thought about like the first German I ever met was this young girl in high school who was on an exchange program here to Nova Scotia from Germany, and she was talking about her parents, or her grandparents, her grandfather, a confrontation with her grandfather. She told the story about this, confronting her grandfather about his participation in like Nazi Germany, and asking like, how could you have done this? How could you have done this? And then it made me think of sort of like the idea of like guilt, and then like guilt from like like from another generation, like accusing a former generation of things they've done. That made me think of climate change. Like, what will the people of the future think about us in this time if we don't stop this change in climate? If we let it go ahead and it becomes very bad, those people are going to be angry with us. And so then I started thinking. That led to some other thoughts. I was looking around some more paintings I saw at the time, and it was the way they depicted nature in paintings, and then thinking about, okay, the way they, is there sort of a theme? If you look at the way people thought about the environment in the time of that Arnold Böcklin painting. If you think back to in the 19th century, so the I was looking at like sort of paintings from the Romantic era. That's maybe like the first era people like started to think about nature differently, where they started to think of like about nature being something that's wanting to get away from like people and civilization, and nature being this sort of inspiring thing, but also thinking about like it had to do with like the Industrial Revolution happening at the time. So that's when like the people were thinking about like how like the environment is being affected by humans. Kind of the first thoughts of that were at that time, and then romanticizing nature. So that thought was in my mind too, thinking about that, guilt, climate change, and then the last thing that came in that kind of helped me figure what I was going to do for work in Berlin was I remembered, I can't remember why I remembered it, but it was something I'd read years ago. I remember something I'd read that stuck in my head. With this scientist was talking about climate change, one of the consequences of climate change. I think it was Tim Flannery, the one I read, but he quotes another scientist, and this other scientist was talking about the change in the color of the world if climate change goes very badly, and he is a paleontologist. This scientist. I'm trying to remember his name right now. I have his book somewhere around here. It's called Under a Green Sky. I went and found his book and read it, and so he's a paleontologist, and he spent a lot of his life studying the big extinction events of the past. He digs through fossils, goes through like the strata in the earth, and I think he was in France for some of it when he was younger in the 80s there. And he's trying to, find evidence for what caused the big extinctions of the past. I guess there's been something like 7 large extinctions on Earth since life began. And the popular one that everyone knows about is an asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. That theory, which there's evidence for, but then he found evidence for other extinctions that weren't caused by that. They were caused by carbon dioxide, basically, like an overabundance of it from volcanic activity. And then the greenhouse effect from that warming the earth, but it's kind of complicated. So like what he believes happened is that when the earth warmed up, your poles melt on the planet, and when the poles are gone, so you no longer have like circulation of water on the oceans that holds the currents that we have that travel around. That has to do with the fact that there's a temperature difference between the equator and the poles. When the ice is gone, you don't really have that temperature difference anymore, and so the water stops moving around, and oxygen doesn't really circulate through the ocean so much, and this allows for this anoxygenic bacteria. It's basically a bacteria that does not it doesn't use oxygen. It uses hydrogen sulfide, I think is the name of the gas it uses, and these bacteria took over the oceans, and they're a purple bacteria. So they give the whole ocean a purple color, and they release this hydrogen sulfide into the atmosphere. There's so much of them that they're covering all the oceans. And over the years, they turn the sky with this hydrogen sulfide into a different color, green. And it's poisonous gas. So both the ocean and the sky became very poisonous. And he believes that it lasts, when this has happened in the past, it's lasted for thousands of years. And that it's killed off like the worst, I think, extinction event. He thinks it killed off like 99% of all the living organisms on Earth. But they slowly came back, but it took a long time, and then there weren't, life came back, not the same living things, whatever survived, things evolved out of that. Because it was carbon dioxide that triggers all this, his warning is that like with what is happening now with people, humans, all the carbon dioxide we release in the air, it could have the same effect. And so we may have this, in the worst case scenario of climate change, we would have this happen again, where the poles melt, water stops circulating, all these purplish anoxidanic bacteria that release hydrogen sulfide into the atmosphere, take over the ocean, change the atmosphere, and the color of the whole world would change. And that was interesting to me as a painter, that the color of the world would change, the color of the landscape of like ocean and sky. And that was my like way into like how to handle painting about climate change. So think about how can you to make paintings about climate change? There's a lot of ways of approaching it that would be a bit cliche, right? And so if it's cliche, it's not going to have. It's my thought is it won't have like much of an effect. If melting icebergs, stuff like people know that, so it's not new information. So I thought the idea of if I make paintings about a consequence of climate change that are not as well known, but extreme, very extreme, and something that suits painting as well, because it's way into painting color. Well, painting is a lot about color. Then that's the way to approach it. And I'm still working on these paintings. I still have this ambition for it, that I could make paintings that were powerful about that. I'm still trying to find the right approach to it. I've made some already, and I'm working on some now. I have a grant, Canada Council grant, to paint this year on this theme of paintings, and I'm trying to find the right kind of tone for these works. Just like I want the paintings to be beautiful, because I think they have to be, to kind of lure someone into looking at them. I guess you could go the opposite way and make them really disgusting, but I think it's the color of green and purple is not, it's not an ugly color combination. It is beautiful. So I'm gonna kind of lean into that, and hopefully it's something we can kind of make this sort of, if I can communicate feelings of like sadness and guilt, and then also the idea like, it's the climate change thing could be much more extreme than people are thinking. There's more well-known like ideas of like what could happen from climate change, that the oceans would rise, that it'd be very bad, heating the earth. But at the extreme, it could be catastrophically bad to like any life on Earth. There would be nothing left but these bacteria at its worst, and then not even like the kind of bacteria that is even related to us that use oxygen. It'd be a totally different kind if it wiped out all the life on Earth except for that. What are the chances that life would ever evolve again? Don't know. And if I want to take it to like the most extreme sadness of this, it would be that I mean, we all hope, but a lot of people hope that there's life somewhere out there in other planets in the universe, and it seems like there should be. There's so many stars out there. I think the same author who wrote the book Under a Green Sky, he wrote another book about this, but I think it's called The Rare Earth, and it's the idea that what if life on this Earth was just extremely lucky? We don't know. We assume that like we're kind of our planet's average of other planets out there, but what if it's just really lucky? I mean, if it is really lucky, then we're just here out of that luck, and then it would be the only life there is. And if the risk of this climate change is extinguishing that's pretty heavy. If it's extinguishing the only life there is, that's at the the farthest end of like the worst repercussions of what climate change could be. It's like the death of everything. And I don't know, to deal with the painting, I'm worried sometimes that that's like, it's not even appropriate to like, to take on in a painting, but I'm going to try. I'm trying.
Every morning, look outside. Always open, a place to hide. Living out above us high. Laughing out the open skies. Singing that along. Singing that along. God, yeah, I'm wet and cold. Stopping still forevermore. Singing that along. Singing that along. A shadow cast across our lives. Daughters, husbands, sons and wives. The chill was warm within us all. Embracing us from up so tall. Darker than the heavens roll. There is no one who loves us more. Blessed evenings, look outside. Deep outside.
Have you thought of doing a series on actual natural disasters that happen in Canada, such as oil spill, fires, flooding, right now we have flooding. So
Yeah.
inspired by the real facts.
Yeah, there are other artists tackling that. I know an artist out in BC who and she makes paintings about forest fires out there, and she does them in kind of a tongue-in-cheek way sometimes, where she do paintings of like a sign welcoming to you to BC, like welcome to BC, but then all the forest behind is on fire, kind of like a parody of tourist posters that are made. But like as far as looking at like actual things that happen, I mean, the thing about this purple and green world is that the scientists who studied that are very certain that it has happened. Not in anyone's experience because it was so long ago, long before humans, but it has. And I don't think just because, that's the biggest problem with like climate change for a lot of people is it's the world seems like it's always been as it has been. It's hard to imagine it. We don't live long enough lives to have a feel for how things have changed over time on big scales like that. Maybe painting is a way to communicate that. It's tricky because like it's complicated, the idea of like the world changing to color, the things that lead up to that. So it's a bit hard to convince someone of the reality of like that danger. But other like things like are it's quite easy to get people like having feelings about. So like the idea of like a meteor striking the Earth and wiping out life. That one, everyone understands that. Big thing smashes in, it's very bad. And this idea of the world slowly changing into a green and purple poisonous Earth is less immediately understood, but maybe just by like making an image that's powerful, if I could make one that's powerful, would be compelling enough to get people to think about it long enough to consider it as like a reality.
As a teacher, I wanted to ask you something that I'm sure you have a good answer for. What do you think about, today's generation interest in manga and all these Japanese animation things? They don't seem to be too interested into, let's say, oils or a more classical way of expression. What do you think about that?
Oh, they're young people are going to be into like the thing of their time. Always, I was into comic books when I was in high school and younger, very much so. But if you get like interested enough in something, if you're really interested in it, you'll dig into it. You want to know like, okay, where did these artists, what are their influences, and what are their influences and their influences. And so like they'll get like, so some of those people interested in things like manga or whatever popular arts of their time, they're going to find their way to more classical arts. Some of them will. Some of them will stay in the realm of their of popular art if they're interested, and that's fine. But as long as there's some people out there who are keeping the kind of big project of art developing, continuing, I think you'll always have people. There's always going to be people who are curious enough to follow back that to the roots of things.
You work with found objects, and maybe they are not really just found because you actually go around and you look for objects and you do select them. There is a selection
Mm-hmm.
criteria.
Yeah, yeah. Although, like, I wouldn't. It's the selection is like almost like done by like sort of an aesthetic preference. So it's not like when I go out looking and not necessarily have like I'm looking for this. It's not that sort of thing. In that case, it was more. I'd look at things, and when I saw something that would like grab my interest, then I would consider, do I want this? But just looking for what grabs my attention. There's, I was talking with another friend of mine who went to NASCAD, and they were talking about something a teacher said to them. Sarah Hartlam Rowe, a teacher at NASCAD, had said to them, and I really like this idea that it's important to pay attention to your attention. So if something is grabbing your attention, you got to like lean into that. You got to find out why am I paying attention to that, and not dismiss it. If you're dismissing something that like grabs your attention, you're probably doing it according to some like criteria of like what you think other people will think. But then you won't have you probably won't have original thoughts or develop something original if you're not paying attention to what really grabs your attention. That's your like kind of key entryway into all the possibilities that comes out of that. Whatever holds your attention or grabs it, find out more about it.
You grew up in the 80s, and now you're teaching teenagers, various age groups. Regarding colors, we were talking about colors and pigment. Do you see a difference in generations between what you preferred in terms of colors in the 80s to what today generations are preferring now?
Well, that's an interesting thought. I don't know. It's hard to say. When you're dealing with like high school kids, their color preferences maybe aren't matured yet. They're not developed. They're probably going to have different interests in a few years. Their color preference will probably change. So their interests are probably based on like what's popular for them, or what they're into. Like if it's manga, probably those sorts of colors they're into. And sometimes people just like just the bright primary and secondary colors. But I think those are just sort of like the beginnings of their color interest, and they're gonna find other color interests if they continue on with art. It'll mature and change and mutate, and so it's hard to tell what their interest is going to be later on. I think young people generally tend to like either like sometimes they'll go into very dark colors, they like that, or they like very impactful bright primary and secondary colors. But I mean, it's different from person to person. But yeah, I don't notice any like great. I'm not aware of a great trend. Maybe there is, but I don't know it.
Behind you, you have a few paintings. Are they yours?
Oh, so the paintings over there, these are plein air paintings I've been doing recently, and then on this wall over here, these are like inspiration paintings. Just the wall of like sort of it's often good for like an artist to do that. Just put up work that they're inspired by. I think it's very good. It's kind of like this is the standards. for how good a painting should be. And then it changes from time to time. But because I've been doing a lot of, since the summer, I've been doing plein air painting a bunch. And I think that's driven my interest towards plein air painters. So these ones are mostly Monet paintings, because I mean, he was really good. And there's like some surprising stuff. Like, you don't think of this when you think of Monet. You don't think of him painting something like a gray scene like this, but he does. He did do that. They're not all Monet paintings, but a lot of these are. And then there's a group of 7, which is a group of 7 painters, or 7 Canadian painters who painted from the landscape. And I've got this one down here, which is sort of on the theme of thinking about like a place changing over time and having like different epochs, I guess. So this one of I think the guy did like 4 paintings. This one is one where it's like it's like before humans, and there's one early settlement of a place, and then there's another one where it's the sort of the high point of a civilization there, decadent, and then this one's afterwards, after people are gone and nature's reclaiming it. But yeah, these are the I'll come around to like the plein air paintings I've been doing lately. So the plein air painting I've been doing wasn't something I planned to do. It was just I moved back to Nova Scotia. I've been living in other places for a while. I'm from here, this area in the South Shore of Nova Scotia, and I joined a group that was doing plein air painting down in Lunenburg to raise money for the local Lunenburg Art Gallery, and just to help pay their rent. And I thought it'd be fun to go and join up and try it out. And I thought I would be terrible plein air painting because I hadn't really done it before. And then I really enjoyed it, a couple days of painting there. And I joined a group. There's mostly the same people there that go over and travel around to different parts of local area here and paint. Plein air painting. Plein air painting means paintings that you paint on the spot outside what you see right there in the moment. You don't touch it up later on. So I've been doing some of my own as well as with this group. So this one here is of a spot here in Bridgewater where I'm living, and it's a place that used to be the old movie theater right over here when I was young, and this was like the parking area, but it's been abandoned for a long time. I think they stripped everything out of there, so it's just the kind of steel frame of the movie theater left, and the concrete's got like it's being pushed up by all these things growing through it. It was just felt like an interesting kind of scene to paint. I remember going there. My first date was there. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of like this sort of painting, but interesting to do it with plein air. And some of the other ones were just of I did a camping trip with some friends. We went out to an island, and in the evening I saw, just as the sun was setting, the scene of these dunes and the beach. Just the light there was compelling. I had to go get my painting stuff out and paint it right there on the spot. And I really like plein air painting. I think I've gotten a bit addicted to it since the summer. It's sort of it's loosening me up as a painter, I think, because I have to paint very fast to paint these, and I like the in the moment response to what you're seeing. And I'm hoping that will influence what I'm going to be painting when I'm painting in the studio. maybe I'll pick up some of that sort of more immediate painting. Plus, also when you look really hard at things like that, it's like I've got to paint. We're painting a lot of environments in the paintings I'm making, and there'll be a lot of ocean and sky, and so it's good to go out and look at those things in the way you do when you're painting, and then that'll go into my memory, because when I paint these green skies, purple oceans, I don't have any reference for that. I have to imagine what that's like. So it's nice to kind of have the experience of having painted the real thing from direct observation. I can't paint from photographs. I know a lot of people do, and some people are very good at it. I just I can't. I started to do it, and I feel like my motivation goes away. I need to like paint from like either my imagination or from my actual observation. Painting from photographs, I feel like there's not enough there to paint in a photograph. It feels there's just not enough to respond to. Yeah, but some people are very good at it. Just I can't keep the motivation to not enough inspiration for me in a photograph for a painting.
I wanted to ask you about the music that you're also writing. How did you get into music, and where does painting meet music?
That's a good question. So the music was, I mean, I've just been interested in music since I was young. And my dad plays guitar, and he played in bands, not like professional bands, but like cover bands, and he got me a guitar when I was young, and I got into that, especially when I think I didn't really take to it till about like high school. I think I took a class at the high school in guitar. It was really nice that they had that. It's a fun class to take, and that teacher, Mr. Leonard, Scott Leonard, was a great teacher. He taught a lot about how to like, some of our projects were to figure out how to play something by listening to it, instead of just having it written down and learning from that. And then, in high school, I would start getting into different music that was happening at the time in the 90s, and my interest in that and trying to figure out how to play it. So mainly came out of guitar, but also recording. I was really into recording. I would say like that goes back even further than music. So I remember like getting a tape recorder when I was young, like maybe 4 or 5, like having access to a tape recorder, and I would just being obsessed with taping things. And I would tape people talking. I used to get my sister and her friends to tell stories. I'd read stories, and I would tape those. And then I kind of kept that up, recording. And that just became where I record music. But also, when I was like a young adult, I remember taking tape recorders around to like just if I'm hanging out with some friends on a porch or something like that, take the tape recorder out and record that. Or I remember a couple times taking them to parties and then just pressing record and then like putting it somewhere and recording what was happening at the party. Or give it to somebody and say, hey, if you have anything to say it into this, and then pass it on to somebody else. I'll find it at the end of the night. Recording and then playing guitar, and she kind of became interested in like recording music. And I would get together with I was in some bands with friends at different points, and then got into the idea of recording the bands I was in. I think I was pretty primitive, like my kind of recording that I would do originally, and then eventually got into like digital recording on computers when I had access to that kind of stuff. And that That's something that's sort of like, I would say it's kind of like painting in some ways. Ryan Eno, I've listened to a lot of interviews with him, and he talks about how recording. Ryan Eno, he was like a member of Roxy Music, and then he's also an artist who makes installations of light and music. Very interesting person, and has interesting thinking. And he talks about like recording music as being it's very different from playing live music. It's closer to being something like painting, he thinks, than playing live music, recording music, because you can go back and you can layer and you can edit and change things. So I see what he's talking about when he says it's like painting. I think I agree with that. Very similar to that. But my ambitions of music aren't that big. I don't music I make just as a hobby. It's for fun. I have a band. I was a recording project band, and I've been working on some recordings with these friends for some years now. And our band is kind of silly. It's a band on that a theme of science fiction in space. I guess is the theme for that. And that came together on a night when I've been talking to these two friends about maybe putting a band together at some point. And we were all at an art opening one night. An art opening for a cat show about cats. I think I had a cat painting or two in it. And we were over in the corner and we all met together. And these two friends hadn't met each other before, but now they were meeting. And we brought the idea like, oh yeah, so we're all thinking about putting a band together. And then one of them said, and I've got the idea for what the theme that we'll make work on. And it was based on something that happened that very day. What was this, 2013, I think it was. So in 2013, there was like a meteor that exploded over Russia. Meteoroid that exploded over Russia. And I don't know if you remember that in the news, but it was like a big explosion. It like broke windows and set off car alarms for just for huge distance. And it was recorded a lot because everyone has these cameras in their cars there in Russia. And so there's my friends meeting in the corner, and my friend Ben suggests that should be the name for our band, Meteoroid. I'd never heard that before. I'd heard of meteors, asteroids. Apparently what had hit the atmosphere over Russia was a meteoroid. So we named our band that, and then with that came the idea that we will make music on the theme of like science fiction, and didn't really tell us what sort of genre of music we were going to make. And so our band, like, we would get together, we made songs, we'd improvise songs, mostly at first, and then they would just sort of be different genres. That wasn't really nailed down. We kind of like the idea that it just kind of flips from genre to genre of music. But generally kind of like rock, pop type music. And then and on these themes a theme would kind of develop out of the sound of the song, or a lyric that Ben would bring in as a singer, and he would improvise the lyrics. Like one of our first songs was called "Open the Space Doors." Just silly, I know, but it's just about how like we started playing this tune, myself on drums, and then my friend Patrick on keyboards, and it kind of sounded a bit, because it was kind of an organ feel to it. It sounded a little bit like kind of a Doors kind of feel to it, and then I guess that made Ben think of doors in space. And space, if you watch a lot of science fiction films, there's always a lot of practical stuff happening and plot points that have to do with doors opening spaces. Doors opening in space is it's often an important plot point. If you think of like 2001, If you're stuck outside the spaceship and you need to get back in, you need to open those doors. It's not just like opening doors here on Earth. It's more serious because you have to worry about the air rushing out or in. So that became like the theme of that song, "Open the Space Doors." It was very simple, silly, but fun. And I think the thing about this music that relates to related to the way I make paintings and things is the not subject matter. I don't make science fiction subject matter. Maybe a little bit with the climate change projection into the future stuff, but I think of that more as speculative fiction. So that's something I would say is different from science fiction. It's not part of like a genre. But the thing that's the same, maybe my approach to music and approach to painting, is the sort of a need for things to be serendipitous. Like the idea kind of has to come out of like some chance happening, some chance encounter of this thought and that thought, or this thing that happened. Or I kind of need that in order to make work. The idea has to kind of come from something like that, or something in a moment that seems just serendipitous. For me, yeah, like I don't feel motivated to make something if I don't have that. I think it's because I don't have confidence that it's going to be, it won't be as fun if I've just sort of thought something and I'm going to make exactly what I thought, predetermined beforehand. Then it's not going to be as exciting to see what that's going to be in the end. That's just going to be, it's going to be exactly what I thought. If I'm good, that's the best it could be then. And that's kind of there's no surprise in it. And I think I feel it. Without something serendipitous happening, it's not going to be art. It's going to be just an illustration of a predetermined idea or something. And I think that something about I could see that in my approach to like music in that band, and in my approach to what inspires me to make a work, or where the idea for a work comes from.
Do you also write?
Yeah, I do write some, not a lot, but I do. When I write for myself, it's rare. Yeah, I did do some writing when I was in Berlin at the beginning, just to, I think I was kind of clarifying some of my thoughts for the paintings. I was coming and writing I was doing. I also did some writing about, the first writing I did was about like sound. Just my impression of how Berlin was different from other places I've been sound-wise. That's one thing I wrote. And then, well, I wrote like a little screenplay, intro screenplay scene for a film idea I'd been thinking about. Angie and I had both, used to kind of stay up at night sometimes, like, and had this thought for a movie we would talk about. And I wrote a scene for it about a scene taking place in the future of this wealthy art collectors in Berlin, and how they lived in this on top of this old bunker. There actually is like art collectors who live on top of an old bunker. We were like imagining in Berlin, but we were imagining a fictional version in the future, and they would be like, it would be a future where the sky had started to turn a little green, and going outside was maybe a little tricky, and these people were taking some sort of had maybe been taking something to kind of prolong their lives longer, but it was having side effects, which were making them sensitive to color, so that they needed to have filters in all their lights and windows to make things black and white, and that they had lost their sense of they were losing their sense of taste in food, but they were trying to hide it in the scene. There's like a dinner between this couple and another couple they've invited over, and they're both art collectors, and they're having this dinner together, but they're all trying to hide from each other the fact that they can't taste the food. But yeah, sometimes they're right, but it's not a lot.
We are at the end of 2021. Do you have any projects for the end of the year or the beginning of next year?
Well, I'm working on the paintings I have a grant for on climate change. I'm working on those through till it's supposed to be finished around August. I have a show lined up for September in Montreal at the FOFA Gallery. It's a room called the Black Box. Not very large, but like 8 by 17 feet. And I want to show these paintings I'm going to make in that room. And I'm trying to make them work with that room. The fact that it's a black box. And that's my main focus, but I'm also thinking about like these plein air paintings. I've been liking doing these. I want to continue doing those. I'd like to show them locally. And I was talking to the possibility of that at the Lunenburg Art School, and they said they could probably show those. So maybe we'll show those. But I think both of those shows will be the fall of next year. And I'm just going to keep working on both of them until then.
Will you be doing plein air in winter as well?
I plan to. I'm going to try it. We'll see how much of a wimp I am. I don't know. Will I go out and find my fingers are too cold to paint? We'll see. I mean, I think I've seen plein air paintings of winter scenes, and it sounds exciting to paint snow, the color on snow. So I'd like to try that. I'm not sure what I'll paint. I think part of me is thinking of going back to the painting I did of the Bridgewater, the old Bridgewater Mall Theater that's all torn down, and we're going to paint that in the winter as well. But we'll see what other places I might paint. But I'm definitely thinking of that. Kind of interested in plein air, like doing not just. I mean, Lunenburg County in Nova Scotia is full of beautiful places to paint, like beautiful scenery, nature. There's lots of it. But I'm also interested in like urban areas and places with sort of evidence of humans, or places that are maybe in decay, or where nature's kind of reclaiming it back from a space that was used by people. Is that's interesting to me to paint. Honestly, I didn't prepare a whole lot for today, unfortunately. I was very busy, much busier than I thought I would be the last couple days. Yeah, I think if you're like sort of inspired enough that you become really motivated to work a lot, and it doesn't even feel like work then necessarily. Sometimes it is, but like if you're just sort of like driven to do it, then you're doing it all the time. You just get better at it. Yeah.